Um, so today's webinar is going to be about mobile device management, and this is part of the ongoing series on our emphasis on cloud security. Before we get into mobile device management and how it can be used to protect your work data on mobile devices, let's look at some of the factors that have made MDM, as it's popularly called, pretty crucial in today's era. Today is the age of smartphones. We use our mobile phones for everything, right from personal reasons to work, be it calling our clients, prospects, emailing our team, staying up to date on work, and even connecting with our peers in networking events on LinkedIn. We end up using our smartphones for it. And a recent survey by the Deloitte Mobile Consumer Survey 2017, certainly seems to think so. 88% of Australians now own a smartphone, and 67% of the respondents to that particular survey use their smartphones for work, and email obviously forms the biggest component. So it goes without saying that smartphones have become an integral part of our life, and more and more companies are bringing in the BYOD policy, which enables employees to use their personal phones for office work as well. And this has definitely helped. Smartphones have empowered us to be a lot more productive. We can get a lot more work done. We don't have to be in office. We can be anywhere, anytime, and get work done. So definitely it has empowered us. But, and there's always a but, isn't there? But here's the legendary Spider-Man quote. Obviously, with great power comes great responsibility, but there is a small twist to this particular quote. Companies have empowered employees with BYOD policies, making sure that they can use their personal phones for work reasons. But additional responsibility has now fallen on the company to ensure that their data is safe and they can control the flow of data in various mobile devices. Why do I say that? Well, there are some pretty painfully obvious issues. At the end of the day, we're all human in nature. We do lose things. And apparently, when it comes to our mobile phones, we end up losing quite a bit. These are the global stats when it comes to how many smartphones are lost each year. So globally, about 70 million smartphones are lost each year. And if you look at Australian stats, we have about 100,000 phones lost each year in Australia. This is the official number. Now, that's one particular issue. The other one is also the fact that a lot of us do not have strong passwords. And globally, 63% of confirmed data breaches involve weak default or stolen passwords. Typically, some of the passwords that we generally use are password 1, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, A, B, C, D, E, or the ever popular Q, W, E, R, T, Y. Now, with those being the cases, the last stat, the last column is pretty worrying to me, at least, and I'm sure it is to you, that only 16% of businesses globally are prepared for mobility security threats. The others are either they think it wouldn't happen to them, or they just don't know what to do, and that's a worrying thing. With BYOD enabled, I'm sure a lot of you use your smartphones for work-related reasons, and your team does that as well. Are you using passwords? What are the security? The questions that you would have to think about would be, what are the security measures that you have in place? Do you have a strong password? Does your team have a strong password? How sure are you about that? Another question is your company data really safe, really secure with your team smartphones? These are some of the questions that we need to think about. Obviously, a logical extension of the previous slide as to what can go wrong, especially in the Australian context. We tend to miss laptops, especially on public transport. We might be working, we keep our laptop to the side, and we get on our stop, and that's it. Laptop is gone. The other scenario that can happen is that an employee who's been using a smart personal phone to access work leaves the organization. Now, we cannot be certain that he or she is not taking work data along with them. It can be an honest error. They might have stored it on their personal drives and on their phones. It might be an inadvertent mistake, but it still happens. How do we prevent that? And can we prevent that? And the final thing is one of my favorite memes when it comes to the office. Weak passwords. As we saw in the previous slide, quite a lot of breaches happen due to weak passwords. So if you combine situation 1 and 3, your laptop, you've lost your laptop, you've misplaced your laptop, but the password's not strong enough. Someone hacks into it and collects all the confidential data for maybe some social engineering attacks in the future. Now, all this sounds like a high-tech, movie thing, but let's not forget something that's closer to home. At least from 22nd February 2018 onward. Does anyone feel free to leave in comments and questions from time to time? Let's not forget notifiable data breaches. For those of you who are not sure about what notifiable data breaches or NDB is, it came into effect from February 22nd, 2018. And essentially, it means that any data breach, and when I say that, if personal/financial, health-related information, any information that can compromise the identity of a client, for example, passport, driving licenses, Medicare cards, or even TFNs, if they're compromised, you need to report that particular breach to the OAIC, the Information Commissioner, and the affected client. Which essentially means that companies can no longer withhold information when data is compromised. So I'm not sure how many of you remember the Uber incident that happened a couple of years ago when there was a huge breach, but Uber just hushed it up. But it did come out of the open eventually, and they got a hefty penalty for it. So, but that's no longer possible. We can no longer withhold information. But for companies that think, well, a breach has happened, my employee lost his laptop, and there's some information that is compromised. But you know what? I'm not going to do anything about it. I'm not going to report it. Well, if it gets out, and I'm sure a lot of breaches will get out, there is a hefty fine associated with the breach. It can go up to $2.1 million for the business. Now that's a pretty hefty penalty. The problem, excuse me. Now, what happens is if in a lot of these cases, because we don't have visibility over what information is on various mobile devices, is on one particular employee's laptop or tablet or mobile device, we cannot be sure if there has been a data breach, and if there has been, if there is a data breach, whose data has been compromised. So in case of suspected data breaches, companies need to take 30 days minimum to assess, investigate, and evaluate the potential data breaches, which means that companies need to spend time and money by bringing in some external consultants to assess if there's a breach. Now, what happens if there is a breach and companies need to report it? Well, the first step is if there is a data breach, you need to notify the OAIC, the Information Commissioner's Office. You need to notify your client. But again, because we might not have visibility as to what data has been breached. It might typically involve a range of clients who you then need to notify that there's been a data breach, and we are taking all steps possible to assess and prevent this from happening in the future. But again, in a lot of cases, you might not be sure of whose information was compromised. And in this particular case, the OAIC mandates that you need to have a notice on your website stating that data breach has happened recently. We're taking all steps possible to ensure that it doesn't happen again, and so on and so forth. What happens because of that? As a result, well, obviously there's the money factor involved if you do not report it, or if you bring in an external consultant and you have to investigate the data breach. Loss of clientele. I'm sure your client will be pretty unhappy if at the end of the day, if there's a breach, because there's going to be a loss of trust in your company, and it's not going to stop there. So once they have once you report a breach to them, what they're going to do is they're going to report it to their immediate network. They're going to say, well, do you know what happened to me? There was a breach happened and I pulled out of their agreement. And as a result of which, you not only lose that particular client, you also lose referral businesses from them. And of course, the most important loss of reputation. And that's a really difficult one to get out from. So and notifiable and data breaches are a definite possibility because of the previous incidents that we saw when an employee loses his laptop, or if they leave the organization, or if there's any unauthorized access. How can we avoid the situations? I'll confess, I'm sure this is how some of us are feeling right now. Pretty great movie, Sixth Sense. Just modified it to say, I see cyber risks everywhere. We'll just take a quick break here in case if there are any questions. I'm just going to monitor if there are any questions. If there are any questions, please feel free to leave them in the chat window. Okay, Adam. All clear so far. Excellent. Thanks, Adam. Pretty good. Right. So let's go back to the presentation. So how can we avoid these situations? And obviously, this is where mobile device management comes into the picture. What's mobile device management? Some of you might be knowing that it helps you secure and manage mobile devices. In our particular case, when it comes to Axiom ID, it's by licensed Office 365 users in your organization. So that's MDM for Office 365. In a nutshell, though, mobile device management, or MDM, is to ensure that every mobile device used to access work, whether be it laptops, tablets, smartphones, used to access work, is managed by your business. And goes without saying that you end up securing the personal phones as well. Let's take a quick look at how it works. Right. Now, before we take a quick look at how MDM works, let's take some scenarios. Let's take a scenario where MDM is not present, where mobile device management is not present. Now, in this particular case, anyone in your company with their personal smartphone can log into work and access it. But you can never be sure if there is basic security measures present in the phone. And therefore, there is a high probability for it to be vulnerable to attacks. With mobile device management, though, you can ensure that every device used for accessing work is managed and secured. What does it mean? It means that even if someone uses a personal phone, they still need to comply with your security measures. We had seen initially that 63% of data breaches globally are because of weak or default passwords. With MDM, you can enforce a password policy, and not just that, you can prevent weak passwords from being used. So maybe it's time to say goodbye to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We can ensure that data is encrypted on devices. It means that only the people with the right credentials can access work data. And finally, if a particular device does not meet your business security requirements, MDM will enable you to block access to that phone, so they can no longer access work data. And this is a pretty good benefit with MDM in the sense if you or anyone in your team loses your smartphone, we can remote wipe information, thereby preventing it from falling into the wrong hands. So what does it mean for your business? What does MDM mean for your business? Essentially, it means, number one, the most important step is every device in your company, whether be it work or personal device, has basic security, has the mandatory security measures in place. The second important point is it restricts unauthorized access when a device is misplaced or lost. Now, going back to the notifiable data breaches, OAIC guidelines state that if potential harm to your clients, individuals, is removed because of proper steps from the organization, there is no need of any further action, which means you don't have to let the OAIC or the clients know that a breaches are happened. Again, let's go back to the previous scenario where an employee loses the laptop. Let's say you or anyone in your team has lost your smartphone. With MDM, we have a password protection in place. We have data encryption, so only the people with the right credentials can access data. And if at all you lose your smartphones, you're empowered to call the IT and say, you know what, I've lost my phone. I want information to be removed from the phone, which means it restricts unauthorized access, which essentially means that you're prepared for notifiable data breach. And to me, that is a very key benefit when it comes to mobile device management. Any questions until this point in time? Please feel free to leave it in the chat window. All right, looks like we're on track. There's also one more benefit that I wanted to touch base on. If you go back to if you go back to the previous slide where we spoke about what happens if an employee leaves the organization, we cannot control what data he or she takes with them. It might be human error or it might be malicious. But with mobile device management, what we can do is that we can ensure that company data is removed from an employee's personal device when they leave the business. How do we achieve that? We enforce policies so that company data is stored only on OneDrive for business. That's one of our features. And when they leave the business, we leave all the personal information intact. So all their precious photos, images, whatever be the case is left intact, but all the work data is wiped from their device. A quick recap before we finish the presentation. With MDM, mobile device management, we can monitor and secure devices. You can enforce password policies on each and every personal phone in the organization. You can implement data encryption. You can delete data from lost devices, and you can remove company data when someone leaves the business. Without MDM, it goes without saying that all of these situations are not possible. So in a nutshell, even if your smartphone or one of your team's mobile device becomes a part of the statistics, the 100,000 phones lost each year, you can at least be sure that the data, your company IP, is secure with mobile device management. How can you enable MDM for your business? Well, mobile device management is part of our solution, Axiom Cloud. One of our solutions over here, managed service solution, is Axiom Cloud. What it does is it provides enhanced cloud managed security together with support, 24/7 support, and desktop, licensing, and third-party cloud add-ons, which we have tried and tested in our organization and with our clients as well. And this provides a complete solution for small and medium businesses with increased security requirements. So mobile device management, as I said, is part of Axiom Cloud, and it's in 3 flavors: basic, essential security, and total security. And it's present across all 3 flavors. Now, I'm going to send more information about Axiom Cloud along with the webinar recording. But if you want to know more about MDM and how it will benefit your organization, do go ahead and call me on 03-8566-6834 or email me at ganesh@axiomit.com.au, and I'll get back in touch with you regarding MDM. What's next? Obviously, we continuously update information on our social media, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, about cloud security, notifiable data breaches, and how Axiom ID, how we can help. Do follow us on social media. I'm going to paste the links in the chat window. Go ahead and follow us there. And also subscribe to our YouTube channel. Again, I'll paste the link in the chat window. Do subscribe to our YouTube channel. The webinar recording will be present in our channel as well. We have webinars once every month. Last month, we had the webinar on how to protect yourself from scam emails. This month, it's MDM. So do watch out for the email with the next webinar information so that you can register for the same. And obviously, at the end of the day, watch out for our email with the webinar recording. You should be receiving it by tomorrow afternoon, max. That's it from me on mobile device management. If there are any questions, we'd love to hear them. Any thoughts, opinions, that's fine as well. Just a reminder for all the attendees, along with the webinar recording, we sent a survey. It would be really helpful if you can let us know your feedback through the survey, because that will help us fine tune our next webinar and how we can take it forward. Ben and Kali, thanks for that.
Hi, Ganesh. Thank you very much. It was very good. Thank you.
Thank you, Bryce. I'll be online for the next 2 to 5 minutes to check if there are any last-minute questions.
Thanks, Ganesh.
Thanks, Don. Excellent. Seems to be all good. Thanks for your time, guys. Expect the webinar recording soon. Thank you.
Bye, Ganesh.